Good morning. My name is Laura Pickens. I'm an American living in Russia, and welcome to my Get Ready with Me. So I still don't really know what to call this series, but I think what I would like to call it today is Great Conversations. So if you don't know me, I am a speaking coach. I don't mean an English teacher. I used to be an English teacher, and I can teach you any English grammar there is, especially if you are Russian. And I now work as a speaking coach. What that means is my clients and I have an hour of amazing conversations. And the purpose of that is, first and foremost, and I don't know if they know this, is just to build confidence. It's not even really about speaking skills. It's about a safe place to explore big ideas and realizing what's important to make good conversation. And it's not vocabulary and it's not grammar. It is confidence. And confidence comes from experience. So I give my clients a safe place to have good experiences in speaking in a foreign language about amazing and big topics, so that when they go out into the real world, they're not afraid of little things like mistakes in grammar. They're more focused on being their actual selves. So that's what I do. And I had an amazing conversation last week that I cannot stop thinking about, and I want to share it with you. The concept of this conversation is comparing countries that have rigorous systems in place and those that don't, and the differences of mentalities of the people that live in these different societies. What a crazy topic, right? So let's start off with the idea of mob mentality. And this is directly related to what happened to me the previous weekend, where I was scared. I was scared because I was being surrounded by a mob that was losing an identity of an individual person and more like a group think, where everybody in that group had decided I was not part of their tribe and therefore I was bad. This is the concept of like self-regulating societies that don't rely on systems, but are the systems themselves. My client brought up an example that she had. She had read a book, I believe. This is me telling a story of someone telling a story of someone telling a story. So details will be lost, but the idea remains. The story was a man in India was on vacation and he was in a taxi, and the taxi driver was driving irresponsibly. And because of that irresponsible driving, he had an accident. And when the car stopped, the driver ran out of the car and ran for it. And the passenger, who's not from India, thought, is there some kind of danger with the car? And he said, no, you will see. And soon a mob formed that surrounded the driver and beat him to death. So why does that happen? That happens because these people in this country, first of all, they're not stupid. This is one of my solid rules about trying to understand people's behavior, people's motivation. They're not stupid. They're not crazy. I mean, some are, but that's not the first belief. The first belief is that these are rational people who believe that they're doing the right thing. How is mob mentality the right thing? And that's because the people in this region believe that their system of justice, their system of police control is corrupt and useless. So the only way to stop people from driving badly is to take matters into their own hands. Most people don't have that much power within their own hands, but as a mob, they all decide to choose that the punishment for putting other people's life in danger by reckless driving is to forfeit your life. Is it right? Is it wrong? It's right for them because that's what they do. And it happens so often that the driver expected it, because this is the rule of mob control. It exists because there is no trust in the systems. So we're going to set that as one extreme end. Let's look at another extreme example. So I'm going to take you back to America. I would say America has very heavy systems. They are robust, they are everywhere, and the population trusts them. For example, if you ask a child in America what to do if someone tries to hurt you, they will say, call the police. There is a belief that calling the authorities will somehow prevent bad things from happening because there is an inherent trust of the system. So this is a story my client told me about herself. She and her husband and her child had gone to a ski resort, and they were on a ski lift. She and her child were on a ski lift with two other people. Her husband was on the ski lift behind her. As they were getting onto the ski lift, she pulled down the safety bar. The unknown people, the boyfriend and girlfriend, were not paying attention, and as she pulled down the safety bar, knocked him on the head a little bit, and he began to be very angry, yelling at her to say that he wasn't ready, even though she had announced that she was doing it. And she said, "Your lack of paying attention is not going to stop me from putting a safety bar down on my child as we are going up a mountain." The boyfriend spent the rest of the ride yelling at her about how she didn't have a right and how she was rude. My client had said that tirade had been like locked and loaded, ready to go. He wanted to be mad at somebody. So as they came to the top, as they were about to descend down where you get off the ski lift, probably at the most dangerous point, he started to lift the bar off of them, including her child. Now, my client, as I was enthusiastically clapping, did not allow that. She grabbed the bar and pulled with all of her might to pull that bar back down on her child. She had a ski pole in her hand, and that ski pole knocked him in the face. As they descended and were getting off the ski lift, the boyfriend, who had blood on his lip, went straight to the authorities and made a complaint about her. Now, in America, we have something that we love. We have a thing that's called zero tolerance. Zero tolerance is the idea that if you break this rule, it is not important the circumstances, it is not important any other factors. If you break this, you receive this ultimate punishment. What it does is it removes any judgment out of this. So what they see is a woman with no damage and a man with damage, and he says that she did it to him, and there's no excuse for it. There's no conversation to be had. And my client, who is Russian born but has lived all over the world, thought that she was in the right. She was defending her child. This man was putting her son's life in danger. Therefore, she had the right to defend herself. But the ski guys, the authorities at the ski lift said, no, you caused damage, you are wrong. And then they said that the safety bar is optional anyway, so that's not an excuse. So then comes the husband who was on the lift after them, who then told her to just say it's a mistake. Just say it's a mistake, it'll be fine. And then she went to the authorities, oh, I'm sorry, it was a mistake. It slipped out of my hand, sorry. And then it was acceptable. And the authorities let them go on their way. But nothing bad happened to the boyfriend. This is a society that is heavily invested in systems. In America, we have security cameras everywhere. We have neighbors that will report on you to the police. We have huge databases of information that follow your every financial move, how you pay taxes, what money that you make, and everything is enforced by the systems at hand. And because of that, people don't necessarily feel a sense to defend themselves. Have you ever seen American houses? They have open green lawns, no fences, and the doors are made out of cardboard with the tiniest locking systems. They are physically very insecure. Have you ever seen a Russian house? Their doors are made out of metal with triple bolting locks and internal mechanisms. Russians don't have the feeling that there is systems in place that are going to stop something bad from happening. They have to defend themselves, and if something bad happens, hopefully there's justice on the other side of it. There are positives and negatives to both these systems. I'm talking about the one in India and the one in America. When you blindly rely on robotic systems that are uninterested in details, that follow strict rules, it doesn't allow for nuance, and every situation is nuanced. And it also makes the people themselves weak because they don't know how to defend themselves because they are expecting someone else to protect them. You have systems like India where a minor mistake could cost you your life because the mob is also fairly zero tolerant. There is no quiet courtroom in which facts can be presented reasonably and judged by people who are not out for vengeance. So what do we have in Russia? I think what we have in Russia is something quite amazing. And it is a mix between the two systems. Russian people, I think, are very smart. And I don't mean book smart. They are book smart, but I'm talking about practical ways of living. They know how to size up people. They know how to evaluate risks. They know how to innovate to give themselves what they need because they have to. There isn't a blind trust on the systems. This goes back to my video about milk products. Some of you really missed the point of that video because everybody sniffs milk when you want to drink it. They sniff it when they open it. The date is there. The date says it's fresh. The cap says it's sealed. Everything about it says the system is in place to say that this is fresh, good milk, but a Russian will still verify it by themselves. Trust but verify. This mentality means that I am responsible for my safety. I'm not putting my life in the hands of a system. I'm going to take care of myself. I grew up in suburbia America, land of perfect systems. When I came to Russia, I was, and still am, extremely naive. There was the belief, if I follow the rules, this will happen. Then if I do what I'm supposed to do, then everything will be fine. What I found is, of course, that's not true. But it's not just not true in Russia, it's also not true in America as well. All systems are imperfect. All people are imperfect. All perfectly designed systems are imperfect. There has to be a flexibility, a creativity that comes from me to look at each individual situation and find the right way through. Let me give you an example. What happens if a kid is in school and they are hit by a bully? What do? Do you tell the teacher? What happens if you tell the teacher? The bully might get more mad at you and attack you after school. The bully might tell his mom, and the mom might tell his mom, and they all get in trouble. If you are in America, there's only one answer, and that is you tell the teacher. And the teacher does this, and you have no control of a situation. It's very neutral. It allows all parties to have a chance to say what they want, and there's not an emotional reaction to the situation. But does that stop bullying? In fact, what it does is it creates lots of complicated situations. How do you navigate bullying in a world that's very restricted? Where if you defend yourself against a bully, then you are no different. I guess in India, you would say, in this world of India that I brought up, you would say, of course you fight back, you fight to the end, because no one is going to come save you. So I think the Russian answer is defend yourself as hard as you can, as long as the teacher is not looking. It might seem immoral, and it might seem even criminal to say skirt the laws of systems. But what it means is that child is taking responsibility for their safety into their own hands. It means that person is responsible for their own consequences, whether it be to defend themselves and face the consequences that come after it, or whether it's the right time to find compromise. I like the part of myself that has been taught by Russians, that has been taught to not be so reliant on broken systems, but to take responsibility for my own safety, my own life. I was confronted by a mob the weekend before, and I really have to ask myself, how do I protect myself in a mob like this? And the problem is that this mob is not going to punch me in the face. In fact, if you've been following me on my Instagram stories, you'll know that my child has suddenly been taken out of school without my agreement. Don't worry about the legalities of any of that. I have taken care of that. But was that a result of the mob? I believe it might be. There are no systems in place for me to be able to defend myself, but through diplomacy and my connections, I will make this situation better. If I was in America, there would be no system right now. There would be no way for me to take control of my situation. Could a mob have put me in the same kind of situation? No, but a Karen could, because we definitely have Karens in America, Karens who understand the system and how to make it work for them. So it's not that one country is safer than the other. It's just in which way do they, it's just what tools do they use against you? But at least in a flexible society, I have tools that I can use back. I'll give you another mundane example. I lived in America in South Carolina. South Carolina is a rather poor state. In America, it's the weirdest thing. It's 50 different governments and 50 different regulations. It is crazy. It is like having 50 different countries all trying to work and live together inside the same borders. If you have never experienced it, it's very hard to explain to you. So in South Carolina, you can buy a car that has been in a car accident and the airbags have come out. That's fine. If the car drives, fine, have at it. We don't even have inspections as far as I remember. If you can drive it, you can drive it. You can take that car to the Department of Motor Vehicles, register it, all is well. And I had a car like that. But I moved to Texas, where they have much more strict regulations about what kind of cars they allow on their road. When I brought that car that I had been driving for over a year to Texas to try to register it, I couldn't. They said because the airbag had been deployed and because it had been in an accident, this car is not legal to be driven on the roads, but it was driving on the roads. And that was the end of that conversation. There is no more. It's a zero tolerance policy. And it's one that is illogical because in South Carolina, it's absolutely fine. It is arbitrary between states, between laws, between systems, what is good and what is bad. So the only way for me to solve that situation was to leave Texas. Rigid laws and strict obedience to these systems creates problems. It's predictable, but it doesn't mean it's not without flaws. An Indian system that is completely without system means that everyone is in fear of what might happen to them and being judged by emotional and people without all the facts is a terrible place. But somewhere in the middle, I have found, is my sweet spot. So that's my story of systems and Russia. If you'd like to know more about what I do, oh my God, I have so many products I make available to everybody. I have this YouTube channel where I post weekly videos about these amazing conversations or a deep insight to my life here. But I also have my reels that I post on Instagram and also here, which are snippets of my everyday life, which include things about grammar, things about what it's like to be an American living in Russia, what the difference is between American and Russian mentalities, a huge gamut of deep topics. I also have a grammar podcast that you can find on YouTube where I go through the grammar that you have learned as non-native speakers and give you the take on how we as native speakers feel the different grammar. I also have a Telegram channel where you can see all the same posts I've just mentioned, but without having to use a VPN. And I also have a private Telegram chat where you can join for 299 rubles to join me for a month, where I can be your private tutor, have access to me to ask me anything you like about grammar and culture. And is this really the way that native speakers speak? All that can be found in the description box. I would love to hear your comments and suggestions of what you would love to hear from me, because I have had 1,500 amazing conversations, I think this year alone, and I would love to share some of the amazing stories I have heard. So come share me some of yours, and I'll see you next week.